Israel Adesanya retains his world title by way of TKO after stopping the Eraser Paulo Costa with a beautiful clipping left hook right on the jawbone, which kind of flash dropped him, but from there, beautiful ground and pound was done, and the referee just stepped in because he knew what was about to follow up. Israel Adesanya in this matchup obviously had that 4-inch height advantage, 8-inch reach advantage, the speed advantage, and he was just a lot more lighter on his feet. Obviously, it doesn't take a genius to understand that when it comes to the longevity of the fight, Paulo Costa, if he doesn't do damage early on, later down in the fight, he was not going to have any more success than what he would have had in the first round. But that narrative was kind of quickly destroyed from the opening of the bell because you would immediately see that the aggressive nature, reckless nature of Paulo Costa was not the same against somebody who was 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. He was a lot more timid. He didn't know how to get in. But more importantly, it was the footwork and the quick responses from Israel Adesanya. But I believe that the leg kicks played the biggest role in this matchup. If you really paid close attention, the most damage before the left hook that Adesanya did was just purely coming down to the legs. And if you just take away the legs, how is Costa going to walk in on you? And if he does, well, it's going to be a lot slower with a bruised up leg than without. And that was what we saw in this fight. Now, going into the fight, obviously you have Paulo Costa, right? Undefeated, this and that. And the most important win that Paulo Costa has had was against Yoel Romero. Obviously, Yoel Romero, championship level fighter, but that was only a 3-round fight, and he was just pretty much gassed out in the 3rd round. Now, I don't like to talk about 3-round fights and, in which a fighter gets tired as if, it's a bad thing. Sometimes in a 3-round fight, you have to fight more to win your rounds. You can't really space out your performances in between these rounds. You kind of have to just go all out. And being a fighter like Paulo Costa, you have to go all out in those 3 rounds. So if he were to get tired, pretty understandable. But I knew that if he were to go into a fight against Adesanya, he would have to fight a little bit more different. And that just kind of takes away from who he is, right? If you take away his ability to be in a fight like he was against Yoel Romero, then he's not going to gas himself out. But if he's not going to be gassing himself out, how is he going to be putting in the work? Because if he's going to fight slow, then he's not going to fight effective. Because in fighting slow against Adesanya's slow is just 2 times the speed of Paulo Costa. So already at a huge speed deficit, footwork deficit, and overall he just was out of range and out of his touch and out of his league. Adesanya just proved to the world why he is still the reigning champion. And I think the most important thing that we just can take away is just the ability that Adesanya has to utilize that range. If you pay close attention in the opening of the very first round and kind of opening up to the second round, you will see that in the first round it was a lot of outside movement, feinting, and leg kicking mainly. And then in the second round, you saw Paulo Costa getting walked down himself. And from there on, I knew it was just a wrap. Because that was something that Paulo Costa was supposed to do. If Paulo Costa can't walk down Israel Adesanya, and Israel Adesanya is walking down Paulo Costa, I mean, that is the most complete, or just like everything that you would need to see in this fight was already seen by that point. So for Adesanya to do that, I knew, all right, it's about to be done. And the more the leg was getting chewed up, the more that desperation was setting in, the more stress was setting in, and just pretty much Adesanya had to do what he had to do. And, he did it perfectly. A lot of times when you see a fighter like Adesanya, it's, they don't really, it kind of surprises me with how people don't know what to expect with Adesanya. And they expect to see a lot of more things or output from his opponent. Like against Yoel Romero, the most important part about fighting Yoel Romero was just still the most important part that was there against Paulo Costa. Adesanya didn't fight any different, or wasn't like he didn't do anything different that he wouldn't have done against Yoel Romero against Paulo Costa. The only difference is that Paulo Costa just had a lot more openings that Adesanya took advantage of. when it comes to Paulo Costa and Yoel Romero, even though Yoel Romero explodes into each attack, with that explosion comes with a lot of speed. But the difference between Costa and Yoel is that Costa kind of throws a lot in bunches and kind of walks and warms up to his shots. He's kind of like a Max Holloway in that type. He doesn't throw with a lot of speed, but he just throws with quite a bit of volume. But with the size that he has, he's not quite particularly the fastest guy, footwork-wise and hand speed-wise. And that was why he wasn't able to catch him. He was able to connect with a lot of body kicks, which I thought would be the best shot that he had with connecting on Adesanya, especially from the long range when he's not in the range yet, which he did, but the problem with it is the speed, man. You know, Paulo Costa would throw his leg kicks or mainly his body kicks, and Adesanya would just catch him, you know. Perhaps moving up to a weight division for Paulo Costa where the opposition is a little bit slower would help him out. But then again, the opposition over there are bigger. So he's not going to be having his way with the light heavyweights just the same way that he did against the middleweights. Kind of like Darren Till, right? At welterweight, Darren Till was able to weight bully his opponents, outzone them, things of that nature. But as soon as he moves up to middleweight, it's a complete different story. So for Paulo Costa, even though he was probably weighing a lot more than Israel Adesanya, I don't think he should be moving up. I don't think he should be looking for, excuses to not compete in this division again. This is just a lesson, right? Paulo Costa only had 13 fights, right? He only beat Yoel Romero. That's world class, and this is the second world class fighter he faced. So these are all learning experiences for him. I don't think he should be discouraged. He didn't look discouraged to me after the fight, so I think that's a good sign. For the future, look, when you're a guy like Paulo Costa, you're young, right? You can still do a lot of things. Does a lot of things encapsulate beating Adesanya and becoming world champion? If you ask me, no. But if we were to ask Israel Adesanya what the future holds, personally, after Costa, I don't know who else he can fight, really. If you really think about it, who else is there, right? I can't really pinpoint anybody of proper pay-per-view main event status that people can get behind, other than it being a Adesanya title defense. He could move up to light heavyweight right now, get the light heavyweight championship as well from Jan Blachowicz. He could do that, and then he can be a double champion, call out John Jones, things of that nature. So the future looks very bright for Adesanya. A lot of things to be done. I'm happy for Adesanya that he was able to get a very clean victory like this, and kind of make people forget about that Yoel Romero performance. But I never really thought it was his fault, because he just did what he had to do, and it was Yoel Romero that didn't do what he needed to do. So, that was just what I took away from the fight. You couldn't really blame Adesanya, really, but it is what it was. Adesanya retains his world title. #and still UFC middleweight champion. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave in the comment section down below what you think is next for these two champions. As always, I've been Keenan from KKTV, signing off. Later.